Our motion is Clean Energy Can Drive America's Economic Recovery. And here to speak against the motion, Robert Bryce. He is the author of Power Hungry, The Myths of Green Energy and the Real Fuels of the Future. He's a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute and former managing editor of the Energy Tribune. And you write, Robert, in one of your books about your experience with solar panels, which you've installed on your house in Austin. And you conclude that after all, you're just not sure they're worth it. Why?
Well, that's true.
What happened up there?
I have to get up there and clean them, for one. Second, the economics. The reason I did it, I got a subsidy, nice big fat subsidy. The city of Austin paid 2/3 of the cost, so I got a $23,000 system for about $8,000. But the payback, assuming no cost of capital and assuming electric rates stay flat, is 20 years. Life of the panel is about 20 years. So I don't know whether it's a good investment or not. We'll see.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Bryce.
So please, by a show of hands, who here is in favor of dirty energy? One. Okay, two, maybe. Okay, thank you. It's what I expected. Well, the fact is that clean energy sounds tremendously appealing. There is no question about it. And debunking clean energy is a dirty job, but Steve and I are here to do that, just that. Reality is that clean energy is not a specific thing. It is a marketing slogan. If you remember, the Waxman-Markey bill in 2009 was called the American Clean Energy and Security Act. To the specifics, Governor Ritter mentioned natural gas. I am as pro-natural gas as anyone. I'm also ardently pro-nuclear, end to end, natural gas to nuclear. I believe these are the paths to the future for a number of reasons. But he also included in his statement that coal, natural gas, nuclear, wind, and solar are clean. The reality is, if all of our energy sources are clean, then none of them are. Regarding clean coal, I view that as oxymoronic, akin to family vacation or jumbo shrimp. Took a while, but I'm glad you finally got it. Thank you. Wind energy is often viewed as the political darling of the moment. This is the clean energy source of the future. Well, if you saw WGBH just yesterday, they had a story about Falmouth, Massachusetts, in which they talked about the objections and, in fact, the strenuous protest by local residents against a new wind turbine in that town. I can point you to localities all over the world. I have interviewed people in New Zealand, Australia, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Missouri, Wisconsin, New York. Some very heated debates here in New York State over the siting of industrial wind turbines. What is the problem? Infrasound, low-level noise that is driving people out of their homes. The wind energy industry says, oh, well, these people that are complaining just need psychological counseling. I kid you not. This is a serious problem that they cannot solve, and they tried to dismiss it out of hand. It cannot be resolved. My opponent said that natural gas, or rather that fossil fuels, can't possibly lead to any kind of economic recovery. I completely disagree. Natural gas today is selling for less than $4. Why? Because of tremendous technological innovation in the upstream oil and gas business. It is selling for about $4 per million BTUs. That's a reduction of about $3 per MMBTU compared to just 3 years ago. That reduction in price is one of the rare bright spots in the commodity markets in the U.S. It is now saving American consumers $65 billion per year, or $180 million per day, and that's a minimum number. The reality is clean energy is such a nebulous phrase, it cannot possibly be supported because the phrase doesn't mean anything. Therefore, you must vote against. Second point, green jobs do not exist or are so expensive as to be crippling to the economy. If you believe the corn ethanol scammers, one of the longest running robberies of taxpayers in this country's history, they just put out a report last month that said they support 70,000 jobs. Well, if you believe the Congressional Budget Office numbers, the total taxpayer cost of the corn ethanol scam is over $16 billion. That works out to $230,000 per job. What about the wind industry? We hear this continually from the American Wind Energy Association. Oh, we're creating all kinds of manufacturing jobs, blah, 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 blah. Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts Susan Combs just came out with a report in December, estimated that every wind job in Texas, where I live, Texas leads the country in wind generation capacity, 10,000 megawatts. Each job associated with the wind industry costs $1.6 million to the taxpayers. Third point, clean energy cannot possibly drive America's economic recovery because it is simply too small in scale. I pride myself on doing my research, doing my numbers. Here they are. Every day, coal provides about 10 million barrels of oil equivalent to the U.S. economy. Natural gas provides about 12 million barrels of oil equivalent every day to the U.S. economy. We also use roughly 17 million barrels of oil. So roughly 39 million barrels of oil equivalent from those three hydrocarbons, that dirty, nasty energy that nobody likes but everybody uses. Okay, so what about the political darlings of the moment, the clean energy sources that we've been discussing here? Non-hydro sources, because we can't build any more dams here, geothermal, wind, biomass, and solar. In 2010, according to the EIA, they provided 166 million megawatt hours of electricity to the U.S. That works out to 277,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day. So, how does that compare then? If we just look at the two dirty, nasty sources of energy, oil and coal, they provide 100 times as much energy to the U.S. economy as the political darlings of the moment, the clean energy darlings of the moment. And if we include natural gas, which I believe is clean, and incredibly pro-natural gas, the ratio is 140 times as much energy from the three hydrocarbons as we get from the clean energy sources. We could double, triple, quadruple, quintuple the amount of energy that we're getting from the clean energy sources that we're discussing here. It will be so small as to make no difference to the U.S. economy, and it certainly will not drive America's economic recovery. Therefore, you must vote against the motion. Final point, clean energy cannot fuel America's economic recovery because it is simply too expensive. Latest data from the Energy Information Administration estimate that over the next 5 years or so, gas-fired electricity will cost about $63 per megawatt hour. Onshore wind will cost about 50% more than that. Offshore wind, 4 times as much as that, and solar thermal generated electricity 5 times as much as that. In January, the Los Angeles Times reported on the city of Los Angeles' goal of having 33% of its electricity coming from renewables by 2020. I quote from the Times that this push for renewables could result in electricity rate hikes of 5 to 8% in each of the next 5 years. What's happening now, the city of Los Angeles is quietly rolling back the renewable targets. In the Governor Ritter's home state, electricity rates have increased by 21% over the past 6 years, and the Denver Post just reported they're likely to increase by 20% over the next 6. Over the last 6 years, the increase has been twice the rate of inflation. The reality is that oil price spikes hurt the U.S. economy. There's no question about that. But with the coming electricity rate hikes that will come from these renewable portfolio standards in the electricity markets will be even worse for the economic recovery. You must vote against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert Bryce.